Hey guys, welcome to my channel. Today we're going to talk about Enneagram Type 6 and we're going to talk about the story of your life. And this comes from this book called Deep Living with the Enneagram by Dr. Roxanne Howe Murphy. Before we get started, just a reminder, in the description below is a link to my website, tomlahue.com. I do Enneagram relationship coaching. If you're feeling stuck in life, you're not sure what the next step is, having relationship problems, you kind of grown apart and you're wanting to get back together to that happy place in life once again, please reach out to me. Also, I have several different courses that are available. I do an Enneagram coaching course coming up soon on Zoom, also an Enneagram relationship coaching course. And as always, there's many different on-demand classes on my website. So check that out. I appreciate it. Let's dive in today to Enneagram Type 6 and the story of your life. And this is just a little section that she has about each type in her book, kind of describing like what it might have been like for you growing up, what some of the challenges, difficulties, and hardships might have been. And you may relate to a lot of this, you may relate to just some of this, but it's interesting nonetheless to kind of go back into the background and sort of think about the story you told yourself or the story you heard growing up. So let's see how much of this you relate to and see if it helps you be more present to life and to have more peace and harmony and happiness in your life. So this is what she says. She says, as a very young child, you were particularly attuned to what would help you know how to navigate the world. So from the six's perspective, the world is a big, scary place, and we need help navigating the world to know who's for us, who's against us, and all of these options can create some anxiety and can even paralyze you from immobility. Okay, you naturally wanted to feel secure and safe, and you might think, who doesn't? Well, I think all of us want to feel secure and safe. It's just we may not struggle with this need as much as a Type 6. There are other things that may feel more pressing. Like, for example, think on the one end of the spectrum, you want to feel secure and safe and you want to belong. But on the other end of the spectrum, there might be, I want to feel excited. I want to feel like there's an adventure. I want to feel like we are on an expedition, we're exploring. And I don't necessarily want to belong as much as I want to stand out and be significant. And so these are like continuums, and we exist along these continuums. And for a Type 6, kind of the background story is, I want to feel safe and secure, and I want to feel like I belong, and I have people's support, and I'm supporting them, that I'm on a team, you might say. The outside world feels big and unknown. And so you may have looked to your father, or your father figure, your protective figure. That tends to go very tight with sixes. To provide guidance and structure, would give you courage and help you feel more independent and safe in this world. And notice there's a struggle here that we're going to pick up on in just a minute. This balance between feeling supported and secure and knowing that you are interdependent with others, while at the same time a conflict of wanting to feel independent, wanting to feel like you're prepared, wanting to feel like you're able to meet the challenges in front of you. And often with sixes, there is some kind of connection with the father figure. Typically, when you talk to a six, you're going to hear, daddy was a big-hearted, loving, protective guy who was always, there to make sure that everything was done right. And you'll hear this larger-than-life kind of figure described as dad, or daddy. Or you might hear the other extreme, like we couldn't depend on him. He wasn't reliable. He was scary and overbearing and authoritarian. But sixes often describe the experiences like aligning with, maybe not overtaking or overpowering the dad figure like an 8 might, but aligning with and trying to connect to and feel a sense of stability and strength in their father figure, their protective figure, or being very disappointed with that father figure because they didn't provide, or they were just absent, didn't provide that structure or that security. So looking for someone outside of yourself to help give you courage to feel independent and safe in this big, scary world. But you were often disappointed and experienced great levels of anxiety. That guidance didn't feel consistent. The guidance that your parents or your father provided may not have felt consistent, or it was too strong, too authoritarian, too authoritative, and you kind of rebelled against it. So there is this interesting thing with sixes of like wanting to have an authority, but then sometimes rebelling against those very sources of authority in your life. And sixes can be so hot and cold, sweet and spicy, salty, sour, for you, against you, submissive and loyal, compliant, resistant, and then, and it's just such an interesting thing with sixes. From the beginning, it seems, and you may not understand it yourself. You may feel like, man, I feel like I'm just back and forth, blown and tossed, and I have a hard time feeling secure and feeling stable and feeling like I can really trust others, wanting to trust people, wanting to trust yourself, but struggling with whether or not you're really able to put your trust in others or even in yourself. Look, you're not crazy. Let's start there. You're not crazy. This is what it means to be a type 6. This is just part of it. This is just your struggle. And realize your video on this is very different than everybody else's video. I'm not saying these things to type 4s or to type 3s or to type 7s. This is your challenge, your struggle outside the Garden of Eden is you live in this wilderness and there are forces against you. And there's no one in your life that can tell you you're going to be safe. Even if I told you you're going to be safe, you can't really trust that. You can't really believe that. So this isn't necessarily about you knowing that you're safe as much as it is you coming back to the present moment and realizing that you can trust your own voice. And even that might feel like a stretch, but let's move on. We'll get there, okay? From the beginning, it seems like you felt a pull between different people in your life, or even a pull between different parts of your life. You experience wanting to be supported and knowing that you could depend on others, while at the same time longing for this sense of independence and that you had what it takes to be able to make it on your own or to handle things on your own. You looked for the right amount of closeness, but not so much closeness that you would feel overwhelmed, you would feel trapped, or you would feel, either extreme felt too threatening. The pull between two opposites. I mean, that we could just stop there and say that's a little bit what it's like to be a 6. Pulled between two opposites, pulled between extremes. This appeared everywhere in your life. Sometimes you were supportive to others, and sometimes you felt like you were a bull in a china shop. Often indecisive, you vacillated. Indecision is such a terrible thing. It feels awful. I'm a 7 wing 6. I'm not a 6, but I got a lot of that indecision about me, and it feels awful when you want to make a decision. It seems like, it should be so simple. It should be so easy. I'm choosing between two things. Why does this feel so overwhelming? But then you second guess yourself. You doubt yourself. You worry about if I do this wrong, what's going to happen? What will be the outcome? Will I be able to live with this? So these internal voices can keep you from having a sense of direction or clarity about what's next or what the right next step is. It can keep you off balance and keep you looking for a home base. And you probably heard people saying, oh my goodness, just make up your mind. Oh my goodness, quit vacillating, quit wavering, quit waffling. With so little internal stability, in other words, so little like being able to go inward and to just know. To just go inward and just know what you want, or know what you feel, or know what is right, or know what the right next step is, you could often end up feeling very pessimistic or negative about life. You can easily spot problems. That's part of being a 6. Problem solvers. You're a compliant type, meaning you comply your energy with the needs around you, with the environment around you, with the problems around you. And 6s tend to be great at working out problems, working through problems. It's sometimes you might feel like you don't have enough information or enough support or enough guidance, internal or external, to really solve your own problems or to come to the conclusion of the matter for yourself. And that can feel exhausting. I can only imagine. I can't fully grasp it, but I can kind of imagine it. Okay, not knowing where your next step is or what could be expected of you could feel paralyzing. The next step. That leads me to something. The movie Frozen with Anna and Elsa? Elsa, I think, is a 4, probably self-preservation 4, and Anna is a 6. So watch those movies again if you like Disney movies, or if you've got kids and you need an excuse to watch a Disney movie. But Anna is a good example of a type 6. And there's a song that she sings in the second movie called The Next Right Thing. And it really kind of like visualizes or demonstrates this exact challenge of 6s of knowing what to do next when you've got all these options, all these courses you could take, all of these possibilities, and then not knowing which direction to fully go, not feeling fully supported, not feeling like you have assurance, and you can't make mistakes. You don't want to do the wrong thing. And so she sings this little song about just doing the next right thing. And I don't know that it's great advice for a 6, but I think it illustrates the challenge that 6s have. And so I printed off the lyrics. Let me read a couple of these lines and see if they resonate with you. She says, can there be a day beyond this night? I don't know anymore what is true. I can't find my direction. I'm all alone. The only star that guided me was you. How to rise from the floor when it's not you I'm rising for. Just do the next right thing. Take a step and then step again. And then she says, I won't look too far ahead. Remember the superpower of every type, right? The superpower of type 6 is fortune telling. Trying to look ahead, to project ahead, to forecast ahead, so that you're able to then discern what needs to be done next, or what you should do next, or what the right next application is. She says, I won't look too far ahead. It's too much for me to take, but break it down to this next breath, this next step. And maybe sometimes in life you've had to do that. You've had to just, I can't think about this like I want to think about it. I'm getting overwhelmed. I'm feeling over anxious. I'm going to end up paralyzed. And so I just need to do the next right thing, or focused on the next right moment, or the next right decision, the next right step to take. And in some ways, 6s can look a little bit like 1s, especially social 6s. 6-wing 5s can really look like 1s sometimes because they're focused on the next right thing or being a part of the right group. And you could look a little bit like 1s, but 1s, it's much more internally known. Where 6s, it's much more externally known. Like, I know what the next right thing is because, okay. So this could be paralyzing. As you grew, you looked to others for guidance and safety, perhaps looking to a trusted adult or even an idea to believe in, or a group that adhered to certain principles. And this is very much the social 6, looking for the right idea, the right group to belong to, that gives you a foundation or stability. And in some ways, this 6 could become like the cult follower, or the investigator that overturns the cult, that exposes all of the corruption within the cult. And so it's like there's somewhere on this spectrum of being a cult follower and just blindly agreeing to everything that you're told to do by Brother Carl, who would never, lead us astray, or being on the opposite end of this spectrum as the one who exposes the cult for the fraud that it is. It's so interesting. All right, so where self-preservation 6s tend to be more attached to the actual people, like the persons, the group, belonging to and connected to people, friendly, outgoing, and warm, looking a little bit more like a 2. Or the social 6s look a little bit more like 1s, and then sexual 6s, the counterphobic 6, looks a little bit like an 8. So if you think you're an 8, you might check that, because you may very well be a self-preservation 6. Okay, so on the other hand, you might have rebelled against any form of authority. And again, there's that spectrum of being the absolute loyal follower, or the one that rebels and overturns and undermines the authority. But just notice, somewhere on that spectrum tends to be very important to 6s. You came to orient your life around trying to know what would happen. Fortune telling. You came to orient your life around trying to figure out, like your brain is always spinning and spiraling, trying to solve, understand, get a clear reading on your environment. Because this makes you feel safer. It makes you feel like, well, I know what to expect then. If I know what to expect, then I'm going to be okay. As long as I can see the enemy, as long as I can see what's coming next, then you'll be able to handle it. It's just not knowing that feels so overwhelming. It's knowing that there's a crowd behind you that wants your demise, but not knowing where it's coming from, not knowing what's going to happen next. That's what really feels overwhelming. And then to feel like you don't have support and you don't have people around you or a team around you could just leave you paralyzed and make you feel hopeless and pessimistic about life. This led you to trying to find and experience support and guidance and to avoid the unknown. So think how uncomfortable it feels when somebody gives you instructions about what the expectations are, but then doesn't give you instructions as to how to carry it out. They don't give you all the supplies or all the resources necessary. They just let you know that here's the deadline, here's the expectation, but then there's no guidance on how to accomplish this task. And you can feel, very apprehensive about something like that. Not trusting the answers that you found, you kept looking outside of yourself. What you didn't know, this is where she kind of brings it all to a head. And this is really important. What you didn't know is that you can trust yourself. And you can trust being enough. And this might make you have to go internal and withdraw for a moment and to just kind of get grounded. You might actually take your shoes and socks off and put your feet in the grass, put your feet in the sand, and help yourself get grounded and get back into your body, get back into how you're feeling. And sometimes you might realize that you know the answer to your puzzle or know the answer to your problem if you could just trust yourself enough to say, well, if I was in charge, or if I was just answering it for me, or if I was just going with how I felt about it, or if I was just going on what made sense to me, then I guess I would say, I don't like it. Or I guess I would say, I'm for it. Or I guess I would say, and just trying to come back into yourself and slow your thinking down for a minute. I know your thinking is like on high speed, but just kind of like get away from the overthinking for a moment and just like, how does this make you feel? One of the things that might be helpful here, I don't know if you guys have ever looked into kinesiology or muscle testing, but it's such an interesting thing. A lot of chiropractors or natural doctors use muscle testing. And kind of the idea is you put your arm out and the doctor will push down, or the therapist or the clinician or whatever will push down on your arm. And if the arm is strong, then that shows that whatever this idea or this medicine or these herbs or this food is actually making you stronger. It like locks in. But if you push down and it's very weak, it shows that there's something in your body that's saying, no, this isn't for me. And you might just explore this concept. If you've never heard of this, you might find it fascinating. Just pick up a banana, for example, and hold your arm up, have somebody just try to gently push your arm down at the wrist. And if you become weaker, then that's kind of like your body is telling you, yeah, bananas aren't really good for you. They're not really something that your body is wanting. And then you pick up a bag of sugar, yeah, weak. You pick up a bottle of Tylenol, weak. And then you pick up an apple and you're like, oh, wow, that was strong. Or you pick up, maybe a vitamin that you take. Now, what's interesting about this is you can go beyond just substances. You hold it to your chest and you can go beyond this, but you can even think of like words or ideas. And you might just explore with this concept. In other words, what I'm trying to say is that sometimes your body knows before you know. And if you could slow down enough to kind of like get into that state of, what is my heart telling me? Or what is my gut telling me? Or what is my body telling me? Sometimes you might be surprised that you know a lot more of what should be done than you give yourself credit for. It's like you feel like you need to look outside for assurance that you're right about this. And what would be so wrong if you were wrong? I mean, what would be so wrong? Would it be the end of the world if you made a decision and it didn't work out well? What are you so afraid of? And that's good to stop and think about that. Most of the things that happen in life, most of the decisions that we're making, most of the ideas that we have or projects we're working on, if we screwed it all up and messed it all up, it wouldn't be the end of the world. Very few decisions in life and very few realities that we find ourselves in at any given moment are life and death decisions. Most of them are just, if it doesn't work one way, we'll figure it out another way. And relaxing a little bit on yourself and saying, look, is this really worth all of the energy, effort, anxiety that I'm bringing into it? And maybe it is, but whether you end up going to University of Florida or Florida State, Can you really make a wrong decision? I mean, you could really labor over that, day after day, and go interview and watch videos and ask people. You could spend days trying to figure out, do I want to go into University of Florida or do I want to go to Florida State? But at the end of the day, you feel like it's going to be the end of the world if you make the wrong decision. Like, oh, what if I get this wrong? Or, oh, what if it doesn't open the right doors for me? The reality is most of the time you don't even know what doors you need opened for you until you get to the next stage. So that idea of coming back and what's the next right thing? Coming back and not trying to, work 17 steps ahead, but just maybe 1 or 2 steps ahead. And then realize whether I pick one or the other, if you're a theological person, if you're a spiritual person, there's a grand design to all of this anyway. There's a force. There's a God that is above all of this, that is sovereignly working all things together. And ultimately, to relax a little bit and say, okay, let me get back into perspective here. This seems like an overwhelming decision, but at the end of the day, it's not really that big a deal. And it's going to work out, and it's going to be okay no matter what happens. I'm going to be okay. And sometimes when I feel like I've made a wrong choice, it leads to opportunities that I didn't even know would be in front of me. And sometimes when I feel like I made the right choice, it doesn't always work out anyway. So relaxing a little bit and sort of not sweating the small stuff and recognizing that most of life, the things we deal with on a day-to-day basis, is pretty small stuff. Sometimes there are life and death decisions that have to be made. But a lot of the times, and what's crazy is you are exactly the person I would go to when I was facing one of these challenging decisions, because you're great at solving problems. But when it comes to your own problems, sometimes you can feel kind of stuck in quicksand and not settled and unsure, and just try to realize this about yourself and not let it hinder you from making progress or moving forward. So you can trust yourself. What you didn't know is that you have your own inner guidance and authority. You couldn't have known that, but by not trying to create it, the support is always here and always in the present, always back in the present moment. Which is kind of the challenge of all of this, is for all of us to realize we're all broken in our own ways, and then to come back to the present moment and to try to live in that present moment. You could probably live, if you're not careful, so far in the future, trying to navigate all of the things that might happen, all of the potential outcomes, potential problems, potential pitfalls, that you never really enjoy or live in the present. And think, at your best, you look like a 9. No problems, everything's okay, it's all going to work out, it's all going to be okay, and whatever happens, happens. And just learning to balance a little bit. Think about balancing a little bit into that 9. Being a little more like a 7 at times, upbeat, positive, believing the best, outgoing, assertive, and then sometimes leaning a little into that 5, a little more matter of fact, a little more stoic, a little less affected by the environment around you, by other people's actions around you. All of this would be good for us. Thank you guys. I hope this is helpful for you, and I hope you continue to keep growing, challenging yourself, comforting yourself, encouraged, and keep moving forward. And as always, continue to be present to life. I'll see you next time.